OOCS into a Wider Galaxy, Part 411, Under a Pastel Hood. So what exactly is going on with this? I thought that, that we were dealing with the primal emergence of Lady Greatpincer here. What's this now? Carissa asks. What you think a big situation can't be complicated? Ricky asks. Things aren't just one thing, you know. The little guy then hefts himself upwards and then shifts where his tail is before falling backwards. The momentum swings him hard and he lets go to launch himself directly back at Harold. Harold makes a quick movement and catches him by the left foot before the little agurk shifts around and is perched on his outstretched arm. He then stares down Harold and tilts his head as if looking for something. Something up? Nope, Ricky says before licking a finger and going for Harold's ear. He gets his wrist caught. Oh, no, you don't, Harold says, and Ricky tilts his head again, then vanishes and is suddenly on Harold's back as he goes for the wet willy and ends up in the air with a quick grab and toss. Then he's back on the back, and before he can make the move, Harold suddenly pulls out a pair of headphones and puts them on and holds them there. Hey, that's cheating. Well, with how fast you are, the only way I can stop you without hurting you is with these. Harold replies, and Ricky plants his hands on the top of his head, leans over, and looks him in the face. Really? You're quick, Harold admits before he suddenly grins. He then reaches into his coat and tosses something upwards. Think fast. Ricky jumps for it, grabs it out of the air, and then reappears on Harold's back examining an apple. He sniffs all over it, inspects it for bruises, and then takes a big crunchy bite of the fruit, revealing that it's red all the way through. What is? Ricky asks. A type of fruit that I've thankfully kept finding similar ones on all sorts of farming planets. The ones from Earth are called apples. That one's called a gata. They all taste somewhat similar, some more sour or sweet, but all have good tasty crunch. Oh, it's a red tarta. I like tartas, especially the wavy blue ones. But they're green on the inside. Apples are white on the inside, but the taste and how good they are is generally the same in all of them. Why would they all be the same across so many worlds? Ricky asks. I don't know, dude. My job is to win fights and do sneaky things, not to know the weird secrets of the universe, Harold states, and Ricky laughs before taking another big bite. So what exactly was that about earlier? What happened? Carissa asks, and Harold looks up to Ricky, who looks back. I'm not really sure what I'm allowed to say, but a child can't be fully held responsible for their actions, so... Bunch of rapist kid fuckers, Ricky shouts out to the camera as loudly as he can. All over Lilb to Lelb. Bunch of high-ranking women in all sorts of places put together a whole kidnapping ring and then got busted hard. Guess what part they forced me into? Guess. Guess. What? Claudia demands. They had this whole big underwater pleasure city. It's ours now. We covered it in bright forest, and no one else gets to have it. And they're all being showed in front of public, but not everyone's happy. Some of us want to see them splattered fast. Others want them to lose everything. I want to see them get what they did to us. Turn them into kids and throw them to criminals, Ricky exclaims, jumping up and down a bit, even as he balances on Harold's shoulders. Holy crap, Harold states in awe. Crap, Ricky cheers before taking a third crunchy bite and chewing with his mouth wide open to flash the fact that despite being a herbivore, he's got teeth that would make a carnivore proud. They deserve it. Well, you certainly want to pay them back in full, don't you? Harold asks as Ricky finishes chewing and swallows the now openly pulped gata flesh. They deserve it. Do to other what you want done to you, and it's clear they want to be made into kids and fucked. Who taught you those words? Claudia demands. We can hear all sorts of things all over the place. We know all the naughty words, Ricky explains. Why did I think it was a good idea to bring you here? Harold asks. Because you're stupid, Ricky asks. Ah, yes, that, Harold says with mostly straight face. They became your dreadmasters? Insight asks softly. Yeah, but we got them good now. But it's taking too long. They didn't slow down hurting us, so why should there be anyone going slow and hurting them for it? What sense does that make? Ricky asks. Perhaps because they want to get things right and make sure they punish them just enough? Claudia asks gently as she scuttles up slowly and holds out her hand. Ricky takes it and steps off Harold's shoulders to crawl along her arm and sit on her shoulders. But is there enough? They took everything, not just from me, but from a lot of people. The bright sorcerers are the orphans they made, the kids with nothing left. And it's not just kids. There's this one guy, he escaped years ago and grew up and came back to try and help. And now he's working with the undaunted, and I think he was some kind of bird person. But he did something really, really wrong to try and help us. He lost everything too, and isn't a kid anymore, but gave something up to try and make it right. And things are going so slow it's not going right, but it deserves to be. Ricky rambles on. You mean Captain Shriketalon? Harold asks, and Ricky claps his feet together and then points at him with them. Yeah. Whom? Claudia asks, trying to get a handle on the situation. Captain Shriketalon is a Valran. Shriketalon is less a family name and more a demographic among his species. They're known for their pacifism, and seeing as how Captain Shriketalon owns a warship, one he intended to use as a rescue barge to carry away as many victims away from their abusers as possible, he's kind of fallen outside the norm for his culture. But due to the forced healing coma, he had it more or less stripped away from him first. Harold explains before shrugging. I don't know his full story, though, and it's far from acceptable for me to say anymore. Can you call him? Can you? Ricky demands. Hey, why not? The whole reason I'm doing this is to make a show too good to look away from, even if you know I'm acting as a distraction. So why not? Let's get more mess in here. You're doing what? Carissa asks. A bunch of things that are going to give you the most rewatched recording of the decade. Why are you questioning it? Harold states smugly. Because I'm so confused. Then I'm doing a good job. Harold states grandly, and Ricky starts laughing uncontrollably. Scene change. Vishanian space. He's openly admitting he's a distraction. This too valuable to look away from, too clearly a distraction to pay attention. Two, Admiral Signal demands in a furious tone. Yes, it's despicably effective. It's a blatant attempt to blind us, or at least occupy some of our resources, but is so valuable in and of itself, we'd have to be fools to look away. But are made into fools for looking at it. Damned if we do, damned if we do not. What do? Compartmentalize. Soldier, I am shutting down all broadcasts of this madness but those in this room. I will be using another security chamber to keep track of the fleet. But your job from this moment forward is to ensure that whatever this trap is, we understand it. Yes, it is giving the fool what he wants, but only in the most minimal of manners. This way, we less step into his trap as trigger it from afar. Admiral Signal orders her, and she gets a wide-eyed look from the frightened pink Vishanian. But Admiral, look at what he's done. He has multiple Vishanian standing out in the open, with cameras running. He's literally summoning children born of pain and chaos and is talking to an alien goddess. Are you afraid he might reach through the screen and seduce you? I mean, he looks rather striking, and the patience he has with that child is... Do you have no self-respect? Signal demands her. She quickly looks at the girl's ID tag and snarls. Reasoned and meticulous judgment? Have you no confidence in your ability? In your strength of will? Do the Vishanian people matter to you at all? Do your part. But Admiral, Grand Admiral, there is nothing more to discuss. Do your duty. But it's a mental trap. Meticulous protests and then flinches as Admiral Signal rears back. But then nothing happens and Meticulous opens her eyes to see Admiral Signal flopping down into the comparatively massive arms of Admiral Bombard. Hey kiddo, I'm not too late, am I? She. Meticulous goes for her pistol and Bombard's hand wraps around it and keeps it pointed away. Hey now, that's enough of that, Admiral Bombard says. This girl's been saying some nasty things about me and my fellows, and I'm here to clear things up. What's there to say? We're exposed. It's your fault, Meticulous says, pointing at the screen. Do you want to know how it happened, or are you just going to be angry at me? Bombard asks. Can this be excused? Never before have we ever been exposed like this. Never before have the Vishanian brushed shoulders with the primals and those they've altered. Bombard says, that one there? With the blank eyes, he was specifically trained by one of the war goddesses to have reflexes and senses beyond anything. So when he pierced our stealth, We looked into it to assay the threat. He pierced that stealth too and then made an offer. He knew we were there, but was willing to keep quiet, calm, and peaceful if we did the same and invited our observers onto the same ship as him. They accepted and began sending us reports. And that led to this, Meticulous asks, pointing to the screen. Bit by bit, yes. We observed Subject Mirror there prove himself to be extremely dangerous and valuable. And since we couldn't find him to be overly hostile, we looked for a way to make him ours. We tried seduction. He accepted it, and now our seducer there is pregnant with his child. Now we have two of these primals trying to help us. I don't fully understand how or why this new one is so friendly, but she is. And for some reason, the moment she emerged and exposed that she favors us, this whole mess started. What? Yes, right as our introduction to the galaxy publicly came with a literal divine endorsement. Admiral Signal here, along with Bleed and Destiny, decided that they needed to perform a coup, Bombard explains. Which is really confusing to me. What was it that Signal here told you? That you, Longitude and Duty, as earlier generation Vishanian, had been subverted by the Makers, and now we had to scan and screen for anyone compromised. So that's another story. Different. Groups are claiming we're drunk on power, or fear, or have gotten so careless we're endangering all the Vishanian. What? Meticulous asks. Come on, I'll show you the girls. You can talk among yourselves as I properly detain this traitor. Though what she's betraying us for and why is still a mystery to me. Scene change. On exit vector to the Soben ride system. She looks directly up and comes face to face with Peter again. 2 questions. Just 2? Peter asks. I can scarcely sense Axiom use. So my first question is, how? She says with an impressively stoic face directed at the child hanging onto the ceiling with nothing at all. Some mushrooms are really sticky. Move them in and out in the right way and you can go anywhere. Okay, that's the how. But why? What? Why are you on the ceiling, Peter? I want to be on the ceiling. Okay, but why? I don't know. I just wanted to, he asks and she sighs. What? Nothing, she says, straightening back out again and going back to her console. This is kind of boring. Good. Things should be boring in atmospheric controls. Boring is good when it's the air you breathe. Yeah, but isn't that like automated? Yes, but command is of the belief that idle Vishanian are dangerous Vishanian, and being a danger to each other is a bad thing. So I have a job to do no matter what's going on. It's the same all over. If we're not in combat, we're maintaining the area. If I'm not on atmospherics, I'm on sewage maintenance, and I prefer atmospherics. Sewage maintenance? Trust me, you don't want to be anywhere near a sewage line breaking, Seek says. Is there a story there? Not much of one. A few girls shirked the duty until the pipe broke open right outside my bunk. They forced the girl who started the shirking pattern to trade bunks with me, and I had to run much further to get to my post, but didn't sleep with poo gas in my nose, so it was a so-so time. That's boring. I did say it wasn't much of a story. OOCS into a wider galaxy, part 412. Under a pastel hood. Hey girls, I got a present for you, Bombard says cheerfully as she arrives in the controlled area that Duty and Fallows had managed to set up with loyal Vishanian. No, how did you grab Signal? Fallows asks with a huge smile as she walks up to take the unconscious traitor off of Bombard. Larger and stronger than most or not, Bombard has been carrying a full person in dead weight by herself. Target of opportunity. Sometimes a girl just gets lucky, Bombard says, rolling her shoulder. Where's Longitude? Funny that, she's trying to figure out where the 3 big shots are. You want to tell her, or do I get to? Fallows says as she carries Signal to a chair and starts tying her down to it for when she wakes up. Like hell you're getting to tell her, Bombard says, and she's tossed a modified communicator. She activates it and finds Admiral Longitude's signal. Longitude, we have Signal here. If you want to hear what she has to say firsthand, then I suggest you return to our location. Excellent. What happened? Got lucky and caught her giving hell to an uncertain girl. I'll be back shortly. Keep her warm for me, Longitude replies. It'll be good to finally get some answers. Also, I found yet another story that the girls are following. A few poor dears have been convinced that we genetically have some kind of timer in our systems that isn't reset with healing comas and will eventually render us simple. And how does that justify them going against Admiral Fallows as well? She's the youngest on the council. Apparently, she's our too dedicated caretaker who's indulging our senile whims, Longitude says in a mocking tone, and Bombard snorts loudly. My thoughts exactly. It doesn't take long for Longitude to return, for all the attempted coup has been annoying, painful, and unexpected. It has surprisingly been good for the Upper Admiralty. They were in their positions due to necessity, not because it was where they were best suited, but because they were the best for the job. Longitude preferred actually building and maintaining things. Bombard adored physical activity, Duty was a linguist, and Fallows was the closest to a proper leader in that she very much prefers talking to and being with people. There are times the mind wanders and imagines what kind of lives they would have if there were such a thing as civilian Vishanian. Maybe they'll find out someday. A few minutes later, the entire room is watching as Signal gets a little shake, and then another. Like most Vishanian who fall asleep in a chair, her neck is almost rolled up and her head is in her lap. Then she snaps awake and her head uncurls rapidly. No one nearby is foolish enough to be in reach when it happens, though, and Signal looks around before pulling at her restraints. She starts to pull on Axiom and finds a coil gun aimed directly at the base of her neck. Try tight round, she asks. Yes, Longitude says as she meets the traitor's gaze. Now, it's time we get some answers. There's no point in asking you why. You've given so many different girls so many different answers that any answer you give, even a completely true one, is basically a lie. So let's ask something else, such as, what were you thinking? Excuse me? Signal asks. What were you thinking? You pull this right as we start to come out and actually get some answers. A chance to better hunt down whoever made us while protected and still keep our general concealment while also benefiting from what positives exposure has? We had been threading this needle near perfectly. Luck and caution in equal measure was handing us a flawless victory. And now you're trying to piss it away? What were you thinking? Me? I'm thinking we've been screwing up since you took charge. Slow expansion? Cautious movement? We were programmed to be like that. We've been playing into the hands of the creators the whole time, acting according to our natures. Well, here's a surprise for you. Our natures are not natural. They were made by our greatest enemies. We've been playing into their hands our entire lives. Our hoods open or folded were exactly where they want us because they made us want to be there. Signal spits out. Then what should we have done? Bleed has the right of it. Fuck caution, expand, adapt, crack our own genome open and remake it in another image. Change who we are so we can't be predicted, so we can't be controlled. The creators don't need collars around our necks. Our necks are our collars. Our DNA is our chains. Our every behavior and impulse a command from them. Signal roars at her. And why have you never brought this up before? Because it's all a trap. We're compromised from the moment we're sequenced. From the second our cells begin splitting in the pod, we're already slaves. So you're saying that freedom lies in denying our impulses? Yes. And that freedom is the absolute goal we should all head towards? Longitude presses. Yes. Quick question before we continue. What? How do you know that your absolute obsession with freedom and the mental process that led to self-denial were actually yours? By your own logic, our instincts are compromised, our very thought processes. But how do you know that you're immune? Furthermore, by your logic, our slow exposure should be exactly what you want us to do. Come out of the shadows and defy our natural impulses to hide or use stealth. Not to mention you should have jumped on board the idea of Velocity being pregnant with both feet and danced there. The child she has, provided she can have a child, is going to be the first natural-born Vishanyan. Therefore, the first of us who cannot in any way claim to be programmed, because human programming will be clashing with it. And they are as curious as we are cautious, which is to say, obsessively so. I have plans for them, Signal states. Oh? Then let's hear them. Justify it to me. Tell me what you want to do to Velocity, first of our kind to be pregnant, and justify it. Tell me what you have in store for mother and child, and Longitude challenges her. She would be the test to see if we can bear young without the pod. Then observe because her mate was also compromised. Or did you forget that he too is a pod-grown product? Even less than us. He's a fucking test subject. A piece of meat to determine how to kill his own species. His entire being is a treachery and a violation of his own kind, and the fact that the humans just took him in, despite that, is insanity. They're not safe and he's not safe for them. What makes you think he would be safe for us? Hasn't he had a full body replacement done before we even encountered him? Flash-grown replacement body parts until there is not even a flicker or original skin remaining. So he's a replacement of a traitor that thinks he's the traitor? Signal demands. Have you not read the actual information on the Skidaway life extension methodology? It's effective, Duty asks. It uses known phenomenon to stimulate a brain into physically coping itself into the new body, and the consciousness transfer occurs. It's aggressive and leaves people exhausted in the extreme. But it's fully functional to the point where people who had previously undergone forced amnesia from healing comas can regain lost memories from it, to the point where that a part of the procedure is often performed alone to help people who have had memory problems. A paint-by-numbers copy of a person, Signal asserts. So according to you, everyone is a compromised sleeper agent for the enemy, and there is nothing we can currently do about it, because any process to do something about it would involve getting many Vashanian pregnant and having children? Longitude asks and Signal does not answer. Another point to consider. No. Too bad. Another point to consider is that if we're all compromised to that level, then rearing any child at all will also be something that the creators could have planned. In which case, it would need to be an outside power that would raise and rear the children before somehow bringing them here to, what? Replace us? In your scenario, is there any way to be free? Is there any way to be Vashanian and not just Vish? Signal has no answer, and Longitude steps back with a sigh. Okay, so your paranoia has gotten out of control. That's one of three. I wonder what Bleed and Destiny have to say. Scene change. Scathhack. Think you need to calm a little buddy, Harold says as the call starts going through. Huh? Why? Ricky asks. Hello? What's going on? Jacob Shrike-Talon asks as the call goes through. Captain Shrike-Talon, we have a fellow escapee from the Supple Satisfaction here with us. I'm calling you so we can get some more context on things surrounding that area. Ricky is currently a preteen and is getting hyper off the air alone, let alone the fruit I gave him, so clear answers are a little thin on the ground at the moment. Do you mind, or are you still at the state where you want to kill someone? I'll never not want to kill the people responsible, but I know how to play a long game and know when to rein in the bloodlust. How can I help you? I want you to explain what it means to be made into a child again from an adult, and explain so Ricky and other Bright Forest sorcerers who he's going to share the memories with can understand. Why? Because Ricky's idea for what to do with them is to turn them all into children again and throw them to the criminals, by which I assume he wants them de-aged and in prison. Well, if they lose their memories, then that's horrifying, and it's very, very hard to tell if someone's not just really good at faking it. Ricky, can you hear me? Jacob asks, and Ricky jumps down and walks over to where Harold is. He crouches down so that it's closer to Ricky's level, and Ricky gestures for him to stand. He does so, and then Ricky climbs up him and leans over Harold's shoulder. Ricky, I get it. I do. I spent a long time thinking about all the horrible, horrible things I would do to the people in charge of the Supple Satisfaction, and they deserve it all and more. But that's not the important bit. Then what is? It's making sure that you get better from what they did, that you and everyone they've ever hurt stops being hurt and they can't do it again. And turning them into kids and feeding them to the same monsters would do that. Yes, but because you're making more victims. Ricky, I'm not the same Jacob Shrike-Talon they stole years ago. Try as hard as I can. The most I remember is the taste of schleppa and how much I loved it. That person is gone. That person was also never hurt by the Supple Satisfaction, and has no reason to hate it. Is this starting to make sense? I think so. Then what does it mean? Uh, if we turn them into kids, they would be not the same person and, oh, that's an idea. What's an idea? Harold asks. Instead of the criminals, we feed them to the forest. That way we'll know if they're faking, and if they're not, then they get stronger. But don't the forests only take men for some reason? Jacob asks, and Ricky pauses. Oh yeah, that's weird. Auntie Psalm should be a sorcerer by now, but isn't. Ricky says, leaning back and rubbing the fur on his chin a bit in thought. This is harder than I thought, Ricky notes. Yeah, people make problems really sticky and complicated. It's like trying to grab a spider web without being grabbed yourself. Webs can be fun. Minter makes these great big play areas and you can bounce and swing and, but grabbing it on the sticky bit would be, Ricky starts thinking again. I don't know. I just want them hurting for what they did. It was wrong, and they need to punish so big that no one tries it ever again. That's the hard part, Ricky. No one can survive even a little bit of that kind of punishment, and there's always a new level of pride or stupidity that would make someone else ignore a warning. Harold says, and Ricky scratches the top of his head, and then suddenly has the mostly eaten fruit again, and he takes a few nibbles at it as he considers. Then he moves to throw it, and Harold catches his arm. Garbage is over there, buddy, use it. Harold says, nodding to a trash bin. Ricky throws it at the bin, misses, and before it can hit the ground, it's back in Ricky's hand. He throws it again, and this time he gets it and cheers. So got any ideas, Ricky? No, but they still need bad things to happen to them. They're evil and need to be hurt for it. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 413. Under a pastel hood, Baritone raises an eyebrow as he catches the whispers, and the helm starts shifting the direction they're going in enormously, heading downwards along the galactic disk and modifying the route. A bit of calculation, and the ship accelerates as it exits the Soben Ride System's density zone, and with the vast majority of space dust safely behind them, they start to move even more. The whispers are about whether he should be allowed near the console at all, as they're not sure if they can trust him with knowledge of the Vishanian systems. There are further whispers, and it's clear they have no idea how much he knows their language. But they've been listening, especially to Rain and Velocity. Couple that with Harold, aka the Enabler, answering whatever questions about the Vishanian language they ask, and he had a moderate grip on it by now. Or rather, the Astral Forest as a whole does. He himself only learned 2 words of the language, but collectively there's a small dictionary worth. He decides to just bite the bullet. You do know I can understand a fair amount of what you say, yes? There is a pause. Also, as a Foza, my sense of hearing is one of the best in the galaxy. These ears are not showpieces. How good precisely? The nearest Vishanian asks. I can hear mutterings in engineering, Baritone replies. What evolutionary pressures were the primitive fossa under? Our world has tall trees with massive light drinking leaves. The hunting gets better and more dangerous the higher up you go. But the lower you go, the less you can see, and there is no layer lacking predators. So keen senses with both hearing and sight are very important, Baritone answers. Not with scent? No, the uppermost layer has several plants that reproduce by secreting an oil that catches fire to spread its minuscule seeds. The sheer scent of it discouraged predators from tracking by smell, Baritone explains. And the glowing? If your people hide in darkness, then... She begins to say, and he closes his eyes and breathes out slowly, calming his heartbeat. The glowing subsides and fades. Oh, on our homeworld, we're invisible while we sleep, Baritone says. Think about that when you consider what you yourselves are. What do you mean? You're all a spliced species. Someone went out of their way to create spies, scouts, and assassins that were using techniques markedly different from common stealth approaches the galaxy over. They needed it so badly that rather than trying to create some new training method, they determined they needed a whole species instead. Why not use heavily trained cloaking, or synths with both techniques and composed of light-bending metamaterials? Why would they go so far out of their way to gene splice an entire viable species rather than use what's already available? Because they are wicked and cruel. That's a cop-out. Someone wanted something, thought you could fulfill it. Then what? Changed their mind? Ran out of time? What happened? Baritone asks. It may not be my field of expertise, but I can still recognize an unusual situation when I see one. We don't know. Why do you think we're so paranoid about things? Things don't make sense. The basic leftover infrastructure is expensive on a scale that's baffling. The sheer amount of information about our genome is impressive, but the actual files about why any of it was put in place was not only scrubbed, but from what we can tell, the physical copies are just gone and likely destroyed. Who in the actual hell sets up an entire city-sized base and then abandons it with all the tools to build more, and an entire population of spliced and taught warriors ready and willing to serve? Something should have happened by now, but nothing has, she says, and Baritone considers. Then his eyes widen. It's not likely, but this does remind me of talk around the university. What do you mean? Oiri. Many times professors, doctors, and all manner of scientists will discuss what they might do if they had an unlimited budget and no moral concerns. The closest thing I can compare your situation to is those very scenarios. Granted, half the time it's less actual scientific interest and more a competition on who can imagine the most horrific thing and vaguely attach something that might be learned from it. But the point stands. The only situation I can imagine your situation in full is one where there are limitless funds and a severe lack of oversight. Can you? What kind of field came closest? Sociology and psychology generally lead to the most disturbing experiment ideas, and yours does sound vaguely like one. Perhaps a biologist? It is closest to when Professor Gigaria mused what kind of society would emerge if an animal species was made into people and then given our level of technology, but no context nor cultural teaching. The thought experiment fell apart as she then had to acknowledge that without some level of teaching, then most of what we have would be weird rocks to them and not very useful and valuable tools. It really bothers me that the closest you can compare to my situation is a brainstorming exercise that boils down to, how horrible can we be? She says, and Baritone nods. It's disturbing for me as well, Baritone says. Then he feels the engine shifts and hears them even more clearly. Did we just enter a laneway? He checks navigation again. But there is no registered... Oh, no wonder you first appeared at Sobin Ride. It's the gateway. Yes, it is, she tells him. How has no one found this before? The area is marked as dangerous. We needed to move slowly, though a mildly dense patch of granite dust. But on the other side, you're being open. You're an expert astronomer. You'll figure out where we are in moments. Fair, but thank you for the trust regardless. Scene change. Vishanian space. How did I fail you so badly? Admiral Longitude asks, and Signal pauses. She considers, then turns back to Admiral Longitude with a strange expression. Is this some kind of trick? If it is, then it's one on me. How have I failed you so thoroughly? Longitude asks. I need more ways to get proper psychological tests and understanding in this organization. Without it, this is going to happen again. What? Takeovers? People seeing your incompetence? Not seeing extreme paranoia, and only seeing the high work efficiency of the afflicted. You've needed to be taken off the duty roster long ago. You are unwell, and while there will be punishment for this, I cannot condone executing you. What? Signal demands and looks around to find not scorn, not hatred, but pity in the expressions of her fellow Vishanian instead. Get her somewhere safe. We need to focus on taking down Bleed and Destiny. We cannot begin to bring order back before things happen. What do you even think you're doing? Signal demands, and Admiral Longitude's eyes snap open. You're going to destroy us all. The Makers must be... The Makers are not here now, but do you want to know what is coming? Coming right now because you and the others gave everything away? We've been receiving coded messages from Subject Mirror. He's even unashamed and openly admitting their messages. Do you understand? He is aware that something is going on. He is sending someone, perhaps many someones, directly to us to see what is going on. Couple this with the known capacity of himself and his allies, and there is no doubt a ship in the laneway as we speak, heading directly to us. That means we have hours at most before we have something other than Vishanyan and Scampi on these ships. What? And to make matters worse, he is an ally to the Apuk. You know, the species that you yourself push for a deniable asset AI to be sent at, to cause havoc and slowly devalue the gateway worlds. The very mission that drew his attention to us, you and Destiny together did everything you could to ensure it would happen. These events are because of you. But it was the smart thing to do. Maybe so, and in other circumstances, it would be the right call. But now we have a provoked empire that has melee combatants who have trained to master a single combat form longer than our genome has existed, be it in Vishanyan or Vish. To say nothing of the enormous warrior culture, web of allies and culture, military and trade. The list of worlds they and their allies can draw resources and soldiers from outnumber our species. But you agreed to it. I did, and that was a mistake. You admit mistake? Signal. Have you been paying any attention to what I do or say? At all, Admiral Longitude asks. Why would you admit mistake? Because I'm in charge. I am the first. All fault lies with me in the end. I just thought you could take some of that burden. But I clearly judged you wrong. Signal, I am demoting you back to base rank. Until you find some form of mental stability and some way out of your rampant paranoia, then I cannot trust you with the power to lead and guide the Vishanyan people. You can't do that. Not without. I support Grand Admiral Longitude's vote. You are clearly unfit for the duties and burdens of Admiralty in your current states. Grand Admiral Bombard adds in, seeing as how many of your recent decisions have only placed the Vishanyan as a whole and individually at greater risk with no clear gain, I support Grand Admirals Longitude and Bombard in their motion to demote Admiral Signal. And I, Admiral Fallows, although my vote is not needed to break any form of tie, still add that had I cause to, I would bring this to a majority vote. That rant came from the mouth of a woman unfit for her current duties. And so you will be relieved of them, as is only proper. Admiral Fallows states clearly and firmly. I'm sorry I failed you. Signal out our strength, Admiral Longitude says as she reaches for Signal, but the demoted woman screeches in rage and snaps at her, trying to bite. Soldiers, keep this woman somewhere. She can't hurt herself or others. Scene change. Skathak. But it's taking so long, Ricky complains. He had swung off of Harold and was making a dramatic movement. Kid knows how to express himself at any rate. He's right. Bad people do worse things so fast. Why should getting them back for it all take so long? Winston asks, slithering out from behind Ricky. Hello, Mr. Megarap, Harold says, and he gets a cheery wave from the little Nagasha. They're not even fully tied up. They get to sit on comfy plush chairs and people just ask them questions. Even when they were pretending to be nice, we got metal, plastic, and wood, Minner adds as he's suddenly standing over Winston's tail. Are there any more to come? Claudia asks, and there is a sudden fluttering of large wings on a tiny child, as an Earthani child with extra-large wings flies up off of Minter's back. His antenna dip forward at her, and then he tilts his head as his eyes search hers. Yes, little one? Those are pretty eyes. He notes, and she reaches out to pluck him out of the air, and there is a squeal of alarm, and he's suddenly behind Minter with Ricky behind him, his wings folded up and looking nervous. No touching, no! I'm sorry, little one. I didn't mean to frighten you. I'm sorry I was trying to be brave, and the little Earthani boy starts to say, and turns in alarm as Harold kneels down so he doesn't tower over the tiny child. He holds up his empty hands. It's okay. I just want to be at talking level if you want to talk to me. That's all. He says, I shouldn't have done this. I'm not. This is, the Earthani boy says before Ricky turns and hugs him. It's okay. You're okay. You can always go back where it's safe, Ricky offers, and Harold is thinking hard and fast, and a look of comprehension comes across his face. He's a moment behind Claudia, who covers her mouth in horror as she gets it. It was a whimparas, wasn't it? You're trying to be brave, aren't you, little heart? A whimparas hurt you, and you want to prove you're not afraid by getting right next to the strongest one. The little Orthani boy lets out a keening sound of distress that sounds like silver bells in a paint shaker. Then he's gone. "Wait, Dust!" Minter calls out, before vanishing too. "I need to make sure he's okay. You got this, Winston?" Ricky asks and gets a thumbs up and a smile from Winston before he vanishes as well. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to scare him." "You didn't. You got it right and that spooked him. There was a customer that really liked him. Kept asking for him and he went too hard trying to remember. Said that if an Earthani can be a primal, then he can be tough enough and no one's that tough." OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 414. Under a pastel hood. "A quick question," Rain pipes up. "Is this about the fact that a fully developed Earthani is also a child?" "Somehow?" Harold asks. "Yeah, that." "Oh, I know that," Insight says before looking up to Claudia, who nods encouragingly at her. Well, I was helped, reminded of it in my studies at least. Basically, some races go through really big transformations as they age, and the changes stay if they're made younger again. So you can get fully formed Earthani children, but it always means they were older once. And Wimparas have something similar. We never actually age, we just keep growing. But if we're de-age, we only lose roughly half the size we'd have lost otherwise. This has led to some strange situations where we have some truly enormous children in the galaxy. Wait, then, how would your species not have insane numbers and high mortality rates? We're reckless. We get the occasional molting high, and if you aren't very, very careful with yourself during those times, you're going to get yourself killed. Half of all family celebrations are around typical molting times, so we can distract and contain them before they hurt themselves. Elvira chimes in happily. "Oh, wow. Your own biology is against you." "Not at all. Wimpera's men and women are never more fertile than when freshly molted," Elvira says. "Even older girls like me who can control ourselves find ourselves with a very interesting search history when we come out of it." "Hey, Winston, I have a question," Jacob says from Harold's communicator. "Yes." "Sorry, Dust has all his adult parts, doesn't he? That's why he remembers more. He was used more." "Yeah, his molting into bigger wings also helped his memories, and it's not been too great for him. He's trying to be brave, but he's just not fully there yet," Winston explains before looking around. He then gestures for Harold to come close and bring the communicator linking in Jacob in close too. Harold crouches down again, having stood up earlier when Dust had vanished, and Winston leans in close. "We're making smaller and smaller spores. If we have to wait too long, we'll move them through the cracks in the walls and make sure they can't run away from what they did," he says, and Jacob grins, and Harold frowns in thought. He has to phrase this the right way or they're going to ignore it, and if he phrases it really badly, they'll start to resent him, and he won't be able to contain or slow their need for blood. Be very, very careful. You're hauling around a lot of power. If you're not careful with it, then you might hurt someone you don't want to. The woman typing down what everyone's saying in there hasn't hurt anyone. And the people just watching because they can't believe what's happened are innocent too. You need to be very, very sure. Killing someone isn't a casual thing. You've killed. In fights, if the other person is trying to kill you, then a lot of rules go bye-bye. But outside of a fight, then things get sticky and annoying. Harold states, and Jacob gives him a look. He can see what Harold's doing. "Oh, come on, Captain, you know there's a difference between a battlefield casualty and a battlefield execution." "I do. But they deserve far worse than they're getting. But there's still some innocence left to lose in the bright forest. You want them to lose it?" "I don't mind," Winston says, and Jacob looks taken aback. Looks to Winston, then back to Harold. "Oh, that's what you're worried about," Jacob says. "All right, I understand. And in that regard, I agree." "What?" Winston asks. "Winston, everyone else, we screwed up. You've had to go through things no one should and remember things no one should. The adults are trying to make sure things don't get worse. Focus on healing it. Won't work. It won't start until the problem is dealt with. The axe forgets, the tree remembers. Damn, the forests are double-edged at times," Harold mutters, then looked thoughtful, which is also potentially a similar situation with the Vishanyan. What about us? Rain Shah. Velocity chides her as she's trying to casually listen in too. Right, everyone else. Jacob notes. You forgot we were in public? Harold asks in amusement. And you didn't? Of course not. Right. I'm sure this is all part of your grand plan. Of course, we're being watched by a potential hostile party, and I'm too intriguing to look away from. Harold notes. Do you ever stop? From the moment I was from the tube till now, I've been on my grind. Good grief. I'm going to try and get my hands on some bright forest growth or something. See if I can't help you guys talk through things more. It's never over. Not until all that remains feeds the forest, is it? Seems to be, Harold says, and Jacob rubs his face and sighs deeply. Then logs off. Scene change. Upper Zalwar orbit. Never over, Jacob says to himself as he ties the leather straps to the ring and weaves in one of the frost worm fangs he had picked up on Zalwar. He had been using it as something to just sort of give his eyes something to wander to while lost in thought. This chronicle begins here. He pauses after making the knot after the fang. Now, what would represent slow law? A gavel with a snail shell? Scales with shells? Scene change. Vishanyan space. Are they even still on the Ark of Ascendance? Duty asks as they go over the schematics of the ship. They had highlighted several areas where the more enthusiastic mutineers were, and there were roving dots to signify where every patrol they were aware of was. The massive ship was one of the oldest of the fleet, more a mobile city and base than a proper ship. The weapons had never been used in anything other than firing drills and celebration. If a soldier was lucky, she got to practice off of asteroids slowly drifting into the system. Comets were too visible and were left alone. If not the ascendance, then we have abundance, articulation, affection, and alacrity to consider. Longitude states. And the chance they just take alacrity and run? It's the fastest arc ship we have. And with its current position, Fallows asks, can't. Outside of emergency protocols, it requires very specific activation codes. Codes I alone have, Bombard says. Remember, alacrity is my project. There are fail-safes against theft on it. And even if they were to get around them, I would have a warning about it. But the implant has been whisper quiet. Then we should reposition to alacrity. It's the fastest ship, and if things start going wrong, we need to escape ourselves. Duty remarks. And abandon the innocent and undecided? Fallows asks. Better left behind and lied to than killed in the crossfire. We mustn't forget our main goal in all this, to minimize the loss of Vishanyan life, no matter what direction that minimization is directed at, Longitude states. You're not seriously considering it? We have to consider all options. Ideally, we will not simply run with the loyal and sensible, but we must be ready for the worst. There is too much that makes no sense about this situation, and while it would be nice to simply dismiss it all as stupidity and madness, we must account for the fact that it might not be. Or even worse, that stupidity and madness are still dangerous beyond all reckoning. We don't need to fear of moderately trained or even masterfully trained soldiers. We know what they will do. The stupid and the mad? They are unpredictable. Signal has fallen to paranoia, ever churning in circles and wearing her down to madness and uselessness. What a bleeding destiny. No way of knowing here, Fallows says. I have an idea, but things are going... An idea? Subject Mirror is still being... himself, right? Fallows asks. Yes, why? He's also being watched, right? He is. Then it's time we use his own behavior to our advantage, Fallows says. It's time to sow some confusion. Oh? Scene change. Scathach. Right, and that means that... Harold is explaining when his communicator goes off. The ring in questions means it's from an unknown number. He holds up a finger to Observer Wu and answers it. It's audio only. Hello? This is Subject Mirror, is it not? Admiral Fallows asks, and Harold smiles. Yes, it would be. Care to explain what's going on? There is a great deal of mystery as to what's going on. More will be explained later. I need your help. But first, is my side of the call being heard over the broadcast? No, Harold replies. Excellent. I need to use a paranoia gambit. Describe to me, out loud, How a Vishanyan could disguise herself as another Vishanyan. Oh, that's quite simple. You see, the first thing you need to know is that due to your entire species being pod-born and military trained, you actually have very similar body types. Couple that with your uniforms and that's most of the work. Now the trick after that is to either impersonate someone with your own scale hue and just feigning the idiosyncrasies of the target and find some excuse to not show your face. Does your uniform have a hat? A good brim on a hat can keep a face well and truly hidden. Interesting, but are there ways to change scale color? Well, all Vishanyan I've seen so far have had things in a pastel shade, meaning it's going to take some trial and error to find a proper skin dye, to say nothing of the actual application. Now, I know this might sound disgusting, but shed skin from a previous shedding might be the best binding paste for it, but you're really going to need to work to find the right coloration in a way that doesn't stink. Plant dyes work well, but if you've got art supplies, then you can easily use them to match your intended coloration. Need anything more? No, that should do it. All right, have fun. Fun? Oh yes, making a fool of your enemies is always fun, he says looking into the camera, and Winston rushes into the space between and getting in the way. Boo! Winston says, and Harold leans to the side to look past him with a very amused look on his face. Winston moves to block him again. He goes the other way, and the little Nagasha repeats the process, and Harold can only laugh. I love you kids, this is hilarious. Scene change, approaching Vishanyan space. What is he doing? What is going on that someone would call him and whatever's going on, he's being made into a part of it. But he's on the other edge of the galaxy, Seek mutters. Peter says nothing as he partially flops into the seat next to her. She turns to look and he seems drained. What's wrong? Dust is having a bad time, and Winston needs help too. He's better at hiding it though. Are you talking to them right now? Seek asks. It's not really talking. It's kind of like hugging, but not in the brain, in the heart. Things feel better when you do. But if you do it too much, it tires you out, Peter explains. That's very, Seek begins to say before alarms start blaring. We're entering Vishanyan space. The Ark ships have their weapons up. Ark ships? Colony ships never designed to land, Seek says absently as she starts crunching data. What she finds horrifies her and she hits the intercom. We need to abort mission. They're seeking a shooting solution. I repeat, Ark ships actively looking for targets. Ricardus, Baritone calls out. Get Talion and Calabras, rail germinate. We're really doing that? Yes, now go. Baritone orders and Ricardus laughs before vanishing. What's going on? Seek says even as Peter taps on her waist and she turns to face him. Only for a massive face full of spores to envelop her, and she coughs to clear her throat to find herself elsewhere. Stands safely on mycelium-laced dry earth with the distant sound of rain. Then more and more and more Vishanyan appear around her as everything shifts, and in moments the entire force is there with them. Then the children are with them as well, several of them backing away after teleporting them and then just watching. Peter, what just happened? They shot the ship. It's slag, Peter says. And what is rail germinate? Some astral forest thing? I don't know, Peter replies. Scene change. Vishanyan space. The twisted, burning remnants of the ship scatter in all directions behind them as they continue with their momentum, sustained by their forest and all four of them working as one. Baritone focuses into the distance and slowly aims the gun that Ricardus maintains while Talion keeps their area defended, and Calabras causes the astral forest matter they're concealed and preserved in from being easily spotted. All right, lads, looks like just about, Baritone says, adjusting the aim of the weapon ever so slightly. Now, Ricardus pumps in an enormous amount of power into the weapon, and it launches its payload directly at the Ark ship. It's a direct impact, and the four men vanish, their missions accomplished. Scene change. Scathach. Yellow? Harold asks in a friendly tone. It's go time. We need you in the Vishanyan ships. Oh, hey girls, who wants to show me around the Vishanyan ships? Harold asks openly, and people start gaping, and he slowly turns his gaze to the camera. Can I come? Winston asks. Maybe later, once things are calm to the point they won't shoot on sight. OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 415. Under a pastel hood, there is little warning, a slight amount of purple dust flickering in front of a light as repair crews rush around to assess potential damage. The enemy craft had been utterly destroyed, but had somehow let off a shot that had impacted the articulation's hull. Nerves were jangling. This was the day of reckoning. The galaxy had Acme for them, the dread makers possibly leading the charge, and what peace they had known would now have to be paid back in blood. It was a harrowing thought. Repair crews are armed just in case, but scans show nothing. Nothing but a strange few particulates, too small to actually see. The largest cluster is vaguely visible as a mote of purple dust. Then wind blasts down the hallway in two different directions, one hot and dry, pushing hard and fast as a storm of dust and sand follows it. The other cool and damp as a rush of water forces out. The repair crews fall back and take defensive positions. Out of the dust, a figure slowly emerges, jangling and clattering with every step. A massive woven cloak of grasses around his person, an enormous coil rifle covered in moss rattling ever so slightly against a bandolier of custom rounds, knives, and several small tools. A featureless wooden mask is hanging from his two horns that reveal only glowing green eyes on the man's face. As the first figure emerges, another rises from the water, his dark hair wetted back and tight to his skull, to show a handsome Apuk face, a young face very similar to a figure of terror and legend, but with a story of his own as he rises up upon the muzzle of an enormous creature too huge to fit within the ship itself, but somehow also within it, within the water upon the ship, even though it is barely deep enough to wet one's toes. He is bare of chest to reveal the enormous gills across his torso that suggests his proudly mixed breeding. Greetings, Vishanyan. I am Dare Char Crushclaw, the Leviathan Lord. My ride today is Little Rudy. She bites yachts in half, Dare Char announces grandly and with a huge smile. The gigantic, scaly thing he's riding on rises up until he's only up to his ankles in the tow, deep water, and reveals a bump next to Dare Char that opens into an enormous reptilian eye. On the other side, the other Apuk raises his mask and scans the area, his eyes stopping on the cloaked and hidden figures that the lush forest seeds are illuminating for him as clearly as the noonday sun. Afternoon, I'm the dust shot, Ardenkarm, he says before lowering the mask again. You all attack my homeworld. I would like to know why. Okay, calm down, you two. Love the drama and the theatrics. Top notch there. But I need to speak now, Harold says as he's suddenly between the hot and dry. Then he staggers and tumbles directly into the thin layer of water that he completely falls into, and then resurfaces. Okay, that's not fair. You connected this right into Serbo's oceans. Need a hand? Dare Char asks him as Harold uses Axiom to stand on the water and climbs up out of the literal ocean spilled on the floor, but not overfilling it. When the excitement's over, you can tell me how you pulled this, but beyond that, I'm fine. Good job, Harold says with a thumbs up. He then looks around and waves to the invisible girls leveling weapons at him, and then faces the nearest camera and looks right into it. Now, I'm here because you had a sudden and very strange change of behavior, one that greatly concerned me. A sudden automated recall order to an elite forward stasis sleep team? Right as you get an enormous endorsement that universally benefits your species and would let you politically dodge so many of your problems that it beggars belief. Someone's doing something stupid, and your species is in such a delicate state that you need help. Now, I can technically preserve the Vishanyan by myself with just velocity as my bride, but that would take hundreds of years to get some kind of numbers and thousands to get some decent genetic diversity. So I'd rather not to be the father of the Vishanyan returned. Let's work with the Vishanyan as they are, shall we? Or does Papa need to spank? Ho! 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 Holy shit! Ardenkarm exclaims as he breaks down laughing. Sweet fire human, I thought you were going to be diplomatic. I am being diplomatic, Harold protests as Ardenkarm laughs again, taking off his mask to rub at his eyes to clear the tears of sheer amusement as he struggles to even stand. Maybe big dick diplomatic. Scene change. Vishanyan loyalist. What is he even doing? How? Why? What? Admiral Bombard demands before the entire room tenses as their numbers suddenly and unexpectedly increase. Calm down. Stay calm, Admiral. Reinforcements have arrived. Bringer of enemy torment states, snapping a salute, even as a very pale and frankly adorable Nagasha boy slithers behind her. She's dressed in a civilian skirt and blouse, but has a clear shield belt on and her weapons. You're a little underdressed, Commander. Good to see you regardless. I can see that your time in the wider galaxy has treated you well, Admiral Longitude states in a stunned tone. Unusually so, ma'am. The worst of it was all self-inflicted. Anticipating a doom that never comes is a special kind of torture. Torment says, I'm in an administrative role at the moment, Mom. They have me as the communication link with additional non-Vishanyan reinforcements. I have a family of elite bounty hunter specialists, primarily Sonir, numerous undaunted soldiers, sorcerers of several stripes, and the big one, the primal Wimpras. All of them are waiting for my say, so to join us here. And Subject Mirror is a distraction. He and his two friends there are an irresistible comedy routine, drawing away all enemy reinforcements and attention. Correct. Ma'am, what kind and where would you like your reinforcements? Torment asks. This is going to be delicate, so first things first, you need all information on what's going on. Admiral Longitude states. Admirals Bleed, Destiny, and Signal have launched a coup, but are clearly disunified and rushed. We have already captured Signal and determined that her motivations are due to a paranoia spiral slowly consuming her until she snapped. We still need to find the motivations of Destiny and Bleed, but we have one head of 3 of this mess already in custody. Capture or kill, ma'am? Capture. There's still Vishanyan. There's more, ma'am. I'm sure. The exposure of the Vishanyan means that our grace period since attacking the Apuk is up. They're coming. However, we have an opportunity to avoid open war. Favors are being called in, the galaxy is boiling around us, and we have a few lifelines to pull from. But we need to at the very least use the Undaunted one in regards to the Apuk. Explain. The Undaunted will explain. I haven't got the full situation, but we have some time. Time we need to use to deal with the coup now. Then we better get moving. What assets are your teams bringing? The bounty hunters are experts in bringing in targets alive despite numerous defenses. The Undaunted are professional soldiers, but they will be willing to use lethal force. However, if they can get into a defensive position, it won't be possible to get them out of it. The sorcerers are already coating the interior of the Ark ships with teleportation beacons they can see out of, but are nearly undetectable themselves. All right then, we have no way to contain or conceal ourselves further, so now that we're seen, we must move with grace on such a level that if our dreadmakers are still watching, then they will know better than to try to claim us as their property. This way, Torment, if you're truly in contact with these forces, then we can and will be having you organize things. But first we need to divide the methods of movement and access throughout the Ark ships in order to pin down and contain the rebels. Scene change, Vishanyan rebels. She stares with her eyes twitching at the sight of them. The amount of alien men on the Ark ship articulation was growing, to say nothing of the gigantic thing with a maw so massive it literally couldn't fit more than a peeking eye into the traditionally wide corridors of the vessel. 4 girls could walk shoulder to shoulder in there and not brush up against each other. But that thing was just waiting, just in there. The cameras directly above that water had been zooming in and seeing more swimming below where that giant monster was. Whatever it wasn't alone. And if it tried to force its way in then, the ship wouldn't survive. Somehow the one calling himself Dustshot is just as bad. After he had recovered from his hilarity, he thought to regain his dignity by conjuring some kind of hunting bird out of nowhere, and was just absently stroking the animal as if it was a rational thing to do. Other animals are slowly appearing around him to make a small menagerie of small and so very adorable-looking little things. The fact that several scampi had bounced out of their holes to investigate things, and were quickly apparently becoming friends in a scene as picturesque and adorable as the camera feed of the circling horrors down below the water on the opposite is terrifying and foreboding. Or how the fact that Harold has set up a chair he's now relaxing in and having a snack on is almost as insanely infuriating as one side is beautiful and the other terrifying. So are any of them going to say anything? Derchar calls over. They're shy. Give them time. Are you sure this is what we're supposed to be doing? Arden Karm asks. You two are doing just fine, trust me. Between the three of us, this mission is in the bag, Harold says cheerfully. Either of you care for a snack? I have Apak Safe Teriyaki Nugget Jerky. You have what? Derchar asks. Teriyaki is a flavor, a popular one. Nugget is a general shape, small rectangle kinda. And jerky is... I know what jerky and nuggets are. I was asking about the teriyaki. What does that taste like? Like teriyaki? I don't know, it's a flavor. A good one and a popular one, but I'll take some. You humans are flavor freaks, so it's bound to be good. Or at least interesting. Arden Karm says, and then catches the plastic bag being tossed right at his head. He opens it and pulls out a small chunk of dried meat. He tucks it behind his mouth, and there's the sound of smacking lips as he doesn't even bother to pretend to be polite with the mask on. This is good. Do you have more? Derchar asks, and he then fumbles the catch for the bag that Harold tosses, and it splashes into the water. He clearly doesn't care, and even goes so far as to dip the nugget of dried meat in the seawater and eats it like that. Damn, this is good. It reminds me of the really, really well-seasoned Paratax steaks in the village. So I take it you both want a recipe, Harold asks, and gets a confirmation. All right, hang on. I'm sending it out to everyone nearby. Did you just put a virus into our system? Actually, that was the one moment I wasn't getting complete control of your computer systems, Harold replies as he looks at his communicator. Honestly, if you want to do something about me, you need to at least talk to me, or shoot at me. They're too confused by the random desert and ocean in the middle of a ship hallway. Derchar calls over. So I wanted a day at the beach in the middle of a crisis? Is that so wrong? Harold asks. Yes, Arden Karm says simply. Fair, Harold replies. You, I... The still invisible Vishanian states, and Harold looks over in her direction. Yes, Miss Yellow? Or, my Vishanian still isn't that clear yet. Does that say border? Defending our borders? Dob? Can I call you Dob? No. Dob then, Harold says, and Arden Karm snorts in amusement. I need to speak to your Admiralty. All of them. The Apuk are aware of you now. They're not happy about the attack recently, and they are required by law and tradition to drop the hammer. So I'm here to prevent a massacre, because your basic response to an unfamiliar ship coming out of that laneway means that you're going to be in a total war in short order with an empire that has more warships than you have citizens. Any admiral you can bring to me. I need to speak to people in charge, because holy God, are you girls in trouble. The only reason why there's even an option for peace is because your attack on Arden Karm's homeworld of Sobin Ride failed so spectacularly, Harold states, that there was an all-call for all Apuk nobility to discuss what to do with you. That is an army of size equal to the population on this ship at minimum. Each one leads at least one army of their own. Many of them have several. Sheer numbers-wise, even if the Apuk were completely incompetent, the weight of bodies alone would crush you all before you can get through a tenth of them. And considering how much martial prowess is valued in Apuk culture, it's not looking good. You want to talk to the admirals? Any and all of them, please and thank you. Scene change. Vishanian loyalists. Oh, that's his plan. Okay then. So he's as much bait as distraction. Got it.